All right. I'm so grateful to be on the land of the Meskwaki Nation, and I pay tribute and honor to them for what they not only have done, but what they are doing currently with their prayer camp. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. So my family's names are Colton and Adonko. The Caddo tribe is based in Oklahoma, and I have a Boston accent, so settle down. I'll tell that story at the after party, okay? And my family was a part of a number of families who fought to protect our traditional religion, the Peyote Church, and I'm quite proud of that. I think that it's just horse sense to say that water is life. It's a rallying call, but it is really just makes sense in every way. But the beautiful thing is that you all know how to say it in Lakota, right? Miniwachoni, exactly. And that is a reflection of the fact that Standing Rock has changed everything. Everything. Access to water, clean water, it's a human right. It's a sacred and a human right. And it doesn't make any difference if you're in Dayton, Iowa, or you're in Flint, Michigan, or you're at Standing Rock. It's a sacred human right. We are in a moment where agribusiness and fossil fuel industries are putting profits over people and planet. And it's not behind the scenes. It's no longer, behind the scenes. It's in our faces. And I think that was what was at the heart of Standing Rock. That's why Standing Rock changed everything, because people really understood what it is that we took a stand for against fossil fuels, to protect sacred sites, to protect the water supply of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, but actually, in reality, taking a stand to protect the water for 17 million people who live and work along the shores of the Missouri River. So in essence, this fight was not simply for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. It was a fight for Mother Earth. It was a fight for humanity. One small corner of the fight to save Mother Earth, which inspired many. Many who went say it changed their lives, and I'm one of the 50% of Native Americans who live in urban area. And so I walk with a moccasin on one foot and a high heel on the other. And for many of us who did not grow up on reservations, we went to Standing Rock and became reconnected to the path of our ancestors and became reconnected to what it actually means to be American Indian in the 21st century. There's been a lot of discussion about the traditional indigenous knowledge and how many people spend their lives studying American Indians, but when American Indians get in the pipelines, corporations' face to try to stop a pipeline, people are not so interested. But people have become inspired because most people do not know, have not known about the role, the kind of community, and the spiritual connection that American Indians have to the land. So in a basic sense, Standing Rock changed the narrative, the racist, colonial, long-held narrative about Indian people. And people spend their whole lives studying us, but one of the biggest misconceptions that's really perpetrated by the public school system is that we've disappeared, that we're no longer there, that we're no longer actually a factor in the political and social life of this country. We are the only people in the country who deal with 3 levels of government. One is our own. We elect our own tribal government. Most tribes do. Some still do it traditionally by appointing. We have to deal with state and local county governments, sometimes city and town governments. And then the federal government has a direct hand in the life and the well-being of our people. And there are many times that those three levels of government have conflicting policies. And so you were able to witness, as the world did, a struggle at Standing Rock that actually was a struggle around tribal sovereignty. When the people of Bismarck, when the elected officials of Bismarck, North Dakota said, no, we don't want the pipeline because it could contaminate our water, the pipeline DAPL said, okay, we'll move it. When the tribe said, we're afraid it's going to contaminate our water supply, what they did was to force a confrontation. They continued to build the pipeline to create facts on the ground, although they did not have a permit, and to force a violent confrontation. And we know now that there was collaboration between the county sheriffs, the National Guard, and the governor, and the private security, which DAPL hired, and that there was collusion and collaboration, and that they were given the okay to use deadly force if necessary. So, with the revelations that were published by Intercept. So, when I say all that to say that these are very difficult political times, very, in some ways, new political terrain. And many groups are grappling with what do we do to protect our water? What do we do to save Mother Earth? I believe the solutions are as old as dirt. Native peoples, from the beginning of time, have organized. That's how we have survived and thrived despite hundreds of years of attempts at genocide, of depriving us of our culture, language, and religions, and most importantly, our land. This kind of organizing, since the world began, people have had to organize. And that's what we need to do in order to protect Mother Earth. But we need to do it in the 21st century context, in the context of perhaps an administration that presents the gravest danger ever to be faced by Mother Earth, but also to American Indians and our right to sovereignty. Standing Rock was reflective of many things that have been developing in the country for the last few years. It was just our turn to lead. We witnessed Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, the Fight for 15, Idle No More. It was our turn, and our grassroots people knew that. So when the pipeline struggle began, there were a core group of very brave Standing Rock Sioux Tribe members who said, no, we're stopping it with our bodies. And these were people who had never done any kind of political action like this, which sparked an international movement, which brought thousands of people, touched millions of people, and in fact inspired the people who have been working on divestment policies and socially responsible investment policies. It inspired them to launch a movement that resulted in the divestment of $5 billion from DAPL. So, yes, the oil is flowing, but we won. We won in a basic sense. We won because we disrupted and interrupted a racist colonial narrative about who we are as a people. We won because we showed the power of grassroots mobilization when it is centered in values, in spirituality, and in prayer. We showed that no matter what the violence that we faced there, that we could only respond with love, with a search for humanity, because that's the only way we're going to solve the problems that face humankind. That's the only way we're going to end poverty and homelessness and fight for the right for health care for all. one of the experience, and another way that we won, there's never been, it's an unprecedented level of political unity of 400 tribes strong who stood with Standing Rock for tribal sovereignty, for our legal and moral right to protect the air, the water, and the land. Never in history have 400 tribes stood together. Never. The biggest coming together was 7 tribes of the Oceti-Chacon during the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And yeah, we won that, but then we started losing. That's the nature of movements, right? So when the tribes came together, it was a historic moment, an emotional, a spiritual awakening that has never been seen. I'm American Indian Movement generation. I grew up in the 70s. I lived at Pine Ridge after the occupation at Wounded Knee. I worked on the defense cases, collecting affidavits and evidence. And in fact, more people were killed the year after the occupation of Wounded Knee than during the occupation. Why? Because the racist right wing mobilized and began to attack the growing leadership on the reservation who were ready to resist unfair, unjust federal laws. And in some ways, I mean, some of the AIM people, AIM generation people, not AIM people, but AIM generation people who came to Standing Rock, for me it was transformative and an experience I've never had. But some said, oh, it's just like the old days. It's like, oh no, No, not at all, much better. Why? Because we were actually awakening the world to the fact that you have to lead with love. You have to lead with values. In order to win, you have to pursue building a transformational movement that is inclusive. My tribe has experienced 3 colonialisms, the Spanish, the French, and then the US. So in each of those onslaughts, tribal culture changed. Culture constantly changes. It serves the needs of the people in the moment. So that when Native Americans say, we want to use our traditional teachings, we want to follow the path of our ancestors, we are not saying that we want to go backwards, but we want to use the wisdom, the lessons learned, in order to understand what we should do now, in the here and now, in the 21st century. And my tribe, when experiencing over hundreds of years these 3 colonialisms, one of the sacred organizing principles was that everyone has a role, but that role will change. That no one was guaranteed a lifetime assignment to hunting or planting a certain crop, because we had to be nimble, as they say in the corporate world. We had to be able to respond to the actual situation in order to not only survive, but to thrive. And that is at the heart of traditional indigenous knowledge. When you see peoples who have survived genocide, who have survived through hundreds of years of being stripped of attempts to strip culture, to deny us certain inalienable rights as people who live in the United States, the only way you can explain it is because we're organized. And the second reason is, no matter how much land grabbing there's been, we are the only peoples in this country that have a land base that is collectively owned. And that we do, under the Constitution, have a legal, a moral, and a spiritual right to protect water. And that fight for sovereignty, that support that we are beginning to see from our many allies, is really at the heart of why it is critically important for CCI, in order to expand and build upon the amazing work you all have been doing to protect water. The only way that you can kind of put it on steroids is to begin to put at the center of your organizing American Indians, the leadership of Indians in Iowa. And the truth is, no matter where people are organizing, recognizing what happened at Standing Rock and actually understanding that if we band together, native and non-native, and build alliances that challenges the powers that be, fossil fuels, extractive industries, and the federal government's policies, we'll all be stronger. Our tribes will thrive. We'll have a better fighting chance to protect health care, education, everything that's under attack, including environmental protection regulations that are being gutted by the Trump administration. But also, you all will benefit. You'll benefit because you'll be a part of a movement that leads with love, that leads with a sacred connection to Mother Earth, that a part of a movement that actually sees reclaiming people's humanity as the core ingredient to building a movement that's transformational. At Standing Rock, one of the most dramatic experiences that I had was when the International Indigenous Youth Council led a march to the front lines on the bridge after many violent confrontations. And I can say, which I probably would never have said in the olden days, in the 70s, our values, our prayers, our spiritual connection to Mother Earth, much stronger than rubber bullets and fire hoses. And these youth went to the front lines. Why? Well, did a water ceremony. They wanted to go there and pray. And there were two angles to why it was the most powerful thing I've ever seen. One, because they wanted to show to the world and to the National Guardsmen, many of whom, were carrying automatic weapons and who were probably serving hamburgers at McDonald's or, running a cashier at Walmart the day before because they're National Guardsmen, right? They're our neighbors. But they wanted to go and show that no matter what violence, no matter what the dangers, that we have strength in our beliefs and our moral and our legal right to protect the water. And so when hundreds of people went to the front lines, sat down, prayed, and brought water with them, they offered the water to the National Guardsmen. 3 of them took water and put it on their hat. And why is that important? The second angle is that it was also that we were praying for their humanity because they were being used by the Dakota Access Pipeline for corporate profits to destroy Mother Earth. And so this native, non-native connection is a critical feature to this moment because Standing Rock changed everyone and everybody's perception about what fighting for water really means. Before that, we were in a Flint moment, and people were appalled at what had happened in Flint. But we took it the next step. We took it as a struggle for Mother Earth and humanity, for humanity to rise up and claim what's rightfully ours. I think we also have to understand the militarized response to this movement. A movement, I can say honestly, if you look at history, which we must, if you look at the path of our ancestors, which we did, that there's always a problem of a violent response when the powers that be want their way. The sit-down strike at Ford Motor Company, the civil rights movement. I mean, you can name all kinds of struggles that were met with a militarized response. The difference now, and what's awakening people, is that it's not just an isolated incident. There's a militarized policing policy that is going on in every city and town. And we have the Trump administration who is trying to demonize protest, to demonize dissent, to demonize those who do not agree with the values of the Trump administration. And make no mistake, the Trump administration has values. We don't agree with them, but they led with values. Yes, they played on people's fears, but they also put forward values, and they swayed people to think life will be better. The truth is that unless we take advantage of the moment to understand the role of militarism and violence as a total detour to social progress, wars around the world, a detour towards saving Mother Earth, a roadblock to saving Mother Earth, unless we take on the issue of violence as a major obstacle, no matter where it arises, be it at the border, or be it in a city, by police departments, or be it in Iraq, we will keep spinning our wheels. We will keep spinning our wheels. At Standing Rock, that was a powerful lesson for many of our young people. They were angry. They were angry. We were being shot at. We were being hosed down. We were being treated like in a war zone. Drones and airplanes would constantly circle. Even when ceremonies were being conducted, when they destroyed, the tribe went into court and explained where the sacred sites were that would be violated by the pipeline. Within one day, the pipeline came in and bulldozed those sacred sites. Bulldozed them, because they got the information from the tribe in open court. So when we went there to do ceremony for the spirits of our ancestors, did they come and arrest us? No, because they knew that wasn't going to fly in the media. There was too much media. But what they did is they flew drones over us for 2 hours of ceremony while people are praying. And in many ways, our young people were like, you elders, this isn't getting it. The more we are at peace, the more violent they became. But the truth is, in the end, that lesson was seen all over the world. But now we have in indigenous native communities on reservations a whole new layer, infrastructure that's developing of people who believe that organizing broad alliances that bring people together based on faith, based on love for humanity is the only way forward. How powerful is that? I want to say, though, that I don't think the path ahead is that easy. I'm very optimistic. I'm like a half glass full kind of person all the time. I also think I'm a little dysfunctional, because when the stuff gets rough, I really get going. When things are not so bad, I'm a little, lackadaisical. Anyone like that here? The tough have to get going when the going gets tough. And I think we have a responsibility to learn from the lessons of Standing Rock, not because we will ever do it the same way again. It will never happen again the same way, but because there is something happening in this country where thousands and thousands of people understand in their gut that something's going wrong in the country. They may not have the solution, they may not know what needs to be done, but the biggest lesson from Standing Rock is that in order to change people's minds, you have to change their hearts. In order to change people's hearts, you've got to change their minds. If facts could win the day, no one would drive drunk. Am I right or wrong? No one would drive drunk. And so the power of the mind-soul connection is not a weak stance. Many people, I think, on the left and in progressive movements have thought that love and a heart-mind connection was weak. We've learned that it is so much stronger than rubber bullets and fire hoses. That's what we've learned again, because we learned that during the Civil Rights Movement. We learned that during the organizing of the unions. We learned that when farmers were resisting being run off the land during the Depression. Sovereignty, that's what we've seen since January. If you want to take them, bring them into organization and build a movement that's actually transformational, you have to do what was said. You have to advocate for something positive, because in Indian country, we have examples of alternative energies that are being built. We can lift those examples up. But the truth be told, is that we need each other to do it. And we need to educate one another. and deep political education about what is transformational, what is strategic, what is tactical, can only be done within organizations. You can't just be a grassroots person and figure out something, what's strategic and what's not. At Standing Rock, we learned that bitter lesson many times. It was a 21st century city. We brought all of our social problems with us. We had to develop, revitalize traditional ways of governing. Building a consensus, building a circle, enlarging the circle of decision-making, dealing with difficulties in a collective way. We also had to help people see the bigger picture, and we had to do it the old-fashioned way. We had to do it going from campfire to campfire, talking about what was happening, why it was happening, who was behind it, in order for people to be able to maintain peace, to maintain a sense of values and prayer. We did it the old-fashioned way, just like going door to door, but only at the camp. We went campfire to campfire, and what developed was a cohort of people who had a clear theory of change, that unity, masses coming together, could do more powerful things than the individual. And so for many of us in Indian country, we have a whole new terrain to organize on, because we have many, many people now who are ready to be a part of a movement. The opportunities to organize far outstrip our capacity. The Native Organizers Alliance, we were uniquely positioned to work there because we run a Native organizing and training program. But the truth is, CCI, you have the experience, you have the resources to reach out to the Meskwaki tribe, to other communities of color who are experiencing on the front line environmental problems, to build authentic, real relationships. Because that's what movement building is all about. It's about relationships, mutual respect, and coming together for the common good of all. So I will end by saying that I was supposed to show my PowerPoint, and I didn't, because I can't coordinate my tongue with my finger. But I will end by saying that I am just so honored to be amongst you, because I know so much about your work, and I will make an embarrassing admission. I have often used the examples of what you've done around DAPL when I speak in Indian country, because it uplifts our people to know that you all, this is the funniest picture ever, but it uplifts people to know that our allies, ranchers and farmers and white people across the country, are ready to do what they need to do to save Mother Earth. I will just say one last thing about this picture. That's Dave Archambault, the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, Faith Spotted Eagle, one of the founders of the Women's Council at Osheti-Shikone, and heads a women's society called Braveheart Society at Yankton Reservation. We were at a funders meeting. Do you want to know how much things have changed? Less than 1% of all philanthropy in this country goes to Indian country. We organized in 3 weeks' time 60 big dog funders to sit down and hear our stories for 2 hours, in order for them to understand that we have the most under-resourced population in the country. We have the worst health statistics of all people. We're the only people in this country who have an increasing cancer rate. Everyone else, all races, decreasing. And largely because of fossil fuel contamination of our water and land. And so this picture kind of captures the moment, which is Dave is looking like a badass. Faith is definitely upbeat, and I'm like, I can't believe we did it. So Standing Rock did change everything, but I believe that CCI can do the same here in Iowa.
Who's on the screen photobombing?
Oh, that is Dallas Goldtooth from Indigenous Environmental Network. And Native Organizers Alliance and IEN were the only two national Native networks on the ground. And we were able to work with the tribal government, with grassroots folks, and to build alliances outside of Indian country to build a more of a national movement. It was quite an honor, and it was quite an experience. So thank you so much.